Greetings fellow new types and welcome to my review of Mobile Suit Gundam The Origin, Episode 3. I might be a little biased in my opinion, but I have to say that this is probably one of the greatest Gundam OVAs I have ever seen, highlighting who is arguably the most popular character from the Gundam franchise, Char Aznable. Now, like I said, I am slightly biased. I've watched just about every single Gundam anime series there is, but for those who've been watching since the beginning, the original Gundam series from 1979, you are truly going to appreciate this episode right here, as not only does it expand on the character of Char Aznable, but we get to see the very beginnings of the 1 Year War. And this episode is so good, and it barely has any mobile suit action whatsoever, if you even want to call it a mobile suit action scene. This whole episode right here is just all about Char Aznable, how far he is willing to go for revenge. So how can I summarize the story here? Well, a lot actually does happen in this OVA, but let me try my best to condense the actual story. It actually opens up with Char Aznable, otherwise known as Casval, otherwise known as Edouard Mass, and he is joining the real Char Aznable on this transport ship. The problem is the real Char Aznable decides that he's going to bring along this old ancient pistol, and this gets him in a lot of trouble with customs, so they decide that they're going to have to lock him up. That is until Casval comes up with this amazing idea that they switch identities, because they look exactly the same, except for their eye colors. So now you have Casval, who is taking on the identity of Char, and Char, who's taking on the identity of Casval. So what happens is, you have Char Aznable, who's getting ready to go to the Zeon Academy, which is where Casval is going. And then you have Char, who is now posing as Casval, going on this lunar transport ship, which leads to his very explosive death. And that's because there's all of these Zeon soldiers and assassins who are waiting for the perfect opportunity to kill this guy, as they want to get rid of any remnants of the brood of Zeon Daikun. And thus we have the true beginnings of Char Aznable, as the one that history will tell. We get to see him go to the Zeon Academy, form a very tumultuous relationship with Garma Zabi, the youngest member of the Zabi clan, and we get to see him plant the seeds for his future revenge, becoming friends with him, schmoozing the family, and even instigating a big conflict between the Zeons and the Federation, which effectively sets up the 1 Year War from the original series. And that's pretty much the whole story of this episode, but really, what I love most about it, unlike the last OVA, is that it really follows Char's journey. In the last episode, Casval was sort of just in the background for most of the episode, just sort of brewing over the deaths of his parents and trying to figure out how he's going to get revenge against the Zabi family. In this episode right here, we actually get to see that in motion, and I have to say this, that this Char Aznable is so manipulative and perfect in his plan and so dedicated to actually turning himself into Char Aznable that it's actually kind of creepy, but it really sucks you in. And for fans of the original Mobile Suit Gundam, there's going to be a lot of scenes here that you're going to appreciate. The fact that he goes out of his way to actually become friends with Garma Zabi, only to lead him to his death in the original series, feels so much more impactful here. Especially considering the relationship between Char Aznable and Garma at the beginning of the series, frankly, isn't all that friendly. Garma just cannot stand Char, and that's because he always manages to one-up him in just about every situation. However, when they become friends, that's when Char actually allows Garma to start winning a little bit more and sort of turning into his right-hand man. This way, he can sort of get some good brownie points with the Zabi family, which will allow him to get even closer to them so that he can actually kill them. There's also another new character who is introduced who goes by the name of Lino, who is the roommate of Char Aznable. He actually knew the real Char, and he immediately can tell that there's something quite not right about the new Char. And it's not just his eye color either. Throughout the entire episode, he keeps trying to figure out, is this even the real guy? And when he does figure out that this is not the real Char, the actual, resolution from this is really surprising. You'd almost expect him to be very angry, but when he realizes that he's actually Casval, he goes goes out of his way to actually help him. He actually agrees with Casval, the fact that his father was poisoned and this all led to the deaths of his parents so that the zombie family could take over. And rather than taking Lino as an ally, this Char Aznable decides that he's actually going to get him killed. However, not before being provided with his classic mask, which apparently is some sort of Lunaball mask. Apparently there's a sport in the Mobile Suit Gundam series which is called Lunaball, and they have these like weird visors that they wear. And this is really perfect for Char because apparently he's got this like weird affliction where his eyes, where he has to wear sunglasses all the time, which might actually be something that belongs to the original Char. Maybe it's something that actually belongs to this new version of Casval and he just sort of has to deal with it. But he totally rolls with the punches by wearing sunglasses throughout most of the episode, which is very reminiscent of the Char that we saw in Zeta Gundam. But then when he finally gets on that mask at the end of the episode, the chills that ran down my spine were just, oh, I loved that scene so much. It was like the birth of Darth Vader, Gundam style. I truly loved it. Not to mention, there's a lot of other little scenes in this episode that are really important and do a great job of expanding on the universe. I mean, we actually get to see Professor Minovsky, the guy who created the Minovsky particles, and is basically the guy who creates mobile suits in the original series, because the Zeon forces are desperately trying to create some sort of brand new weapon, and they have these prototype mobile suits, but unfortunately, they have their engines on the outside, so they can be easily taken out. That's when Professor Minovsky comes in and decides that they're actually going to put it inside of it like a core, and that's what's going to create the brand new mobile suits of the series. And we get a little bit of a tease, this great sequence of this prototype Zaku just flying around and destroying ships, really the only major mobile suit scene from the episode, and yet it still doesn't take away from this because the rest of the episode is just so damned riveting. It's not going to be for everyone, however. I think this is an episode that's mostly going to appeal to those who watched the original Mobile Suit Gundam. I mean, it's still enjoyable just getting to see how far Casval will go to actually adopt the identity of Char Aznable and how he's willing to let go of his pride so that he can just get closer to the zombie family. He could have killed Garma so many times in this episode. There was so much opportunity for it. There was this one training exercise when they were hiking up to the top of this mountain, and Garma, in an effort to try and beat Char, tries to get ahead of him when they're taking a break. He falls into this chasm where, frankly, Char could have just left him to die, but instead, he goes, he helps him, he stays with him, just so that he can look good for the frickin' zombie family. It's so manipulative and perfect, and exactly what Char would want to do. Now, going back to his friend Lino, towards the end of the episode, when he finally dons his mask for the first time, the Academy students of Zeon are getting ready to have this big uprising against the Federation forces. And that's because there was this incident in the episode where this massive Federation ship crashed into this, like, lunar ship, which was getting ready to leave Zeon, and it caused all sorts of shit. Basically, this was like the straw that broke the camel's back on the war between Zeon and Federation, and it gave them the opportunity to want to gain independence from the Earth sphere. So this just pissed off the Zeons even more. They started uprising, having all these riots, and they started getting attacked by the Federation forces, and it almost looks like Zeon was going to be burnt to the ground by the Federation forces. That is until Char came up with this amazing plan where both him and Garma are actually going to stage a coup against the Federation forces, just using the Academy students. And this leads to an action scene which is, frankly, my friends, just perfect. Because there's no mobile suits, it's just soldiers, it's on the ground, and even better, they actually utilize the jetpacks that we see in the Mobile Suit Gundam series all the time, but to a greater effect than I've ever seen before. Char Aznable using his jetpack in this episode leads to some great action sequences of him flying around, flipping, taking out Federation soldiers, the other guys sneaking in guerrilla warfare style, planting bombs all over the place. It's just damn satisfying. And this is also where Char actually sets up his friend Lino to be killed by commanding him to take control of this tank, which leads him to his doom when he runs into a lot of Federation soldiers with rocket launchers. This way, no one else knows his secret, but he was still able to obtain his cool mask from this character. Really, throughout most of the episode, you're waiting for Lino to be killed, but it happens in such a way that is just so heartbreaking. And it's exactly what Char would do. A lot of the times when he has people get killed, he sets them up to be killed. He rarely does the killing himself. And again, it paints him in a somewhat, like, evil light, but then again, it's not exactly black and white with Char Aznable, because yes, technically he is kind of a villain, but he's frankly just trying to get revenge for his family, which is something you can sympathize with, but he's definitely going to extremes to make that happen. And in the final battle of this week's episode, the Zeons actually win, and in a plan that went so perfectly for Char, Garma is seen as the hero of this operation. The bold and brash Dazzle Zombie is so overjoyed that Garma, who is basically known as the weakest member of the Zombie family, was able to pull off something like this. Again, something that's going to make Garma seem awesome and wanting the Zombie families to bring Char even closer to them. It's just a great setup to his revenge, and it's amazing how far and dedicated he is to his plan. It's almost creepy, but damned if it doesn't suck you into its amazing story. There's even a small scene where we get to see the return of Sayla Mass, who is barely in this episode whatsoever. And then, of course, there is the post-credit scene, which gave me all sorts of goosebumps, where we got to see Amuro Ray and his father going to Side 7 for the very first time, which is still being built. And when they walk out into the colony and you start to hear that old school saxophone music soundtrack that they used in the original Mobile Suit Gundam, it just sent a huge chill down my spine and made me appreciate this episode all the bit more. And like I said, despite the fact that there is next to no mobile suit action in this episode, this was an amazingly well-written, super riveting, and awesome episode of Gundam the Origin. I really loved it. So what's the rundown on this episode of Gundam the Origin? It kicks all sorts of ass. This is an OVA which was made for the hardcore Gundam fan, especially those who follow the original Universal Century storyline. The choice to follow Char Aznable is an interesting one, because a lot of the stuff that happened in the original series can certainly be inferred, and a lot of times they do these prequels, you expect them to be sort of bogged down in a lot of noisy details and things that really aren't all that interesting, but this is doing a really great job of expanding on these characters and actually making you care about them just a lot more. I love that we actually got to see the developing friendship between Char and Garma. I really appreciated that. And Char himself continues to be an amazing character even after all these years, getting to see how he's sort of pulling the strings behind the scenes, how it results in the death of a lot of innocent people. The real Char Aznable is a total goofball. He's a friggin' moron. He's just an annoying character, but he didn't deserve to be killed like that, nor did all of the innocent people. He basically led him to his very own death, and it was the perfect opportunity to assume his identity. I had a feeling it was going to go down like that. I just didn't know that's how they were going to open the episode, and I'm kind of glad that they got through that, because watching Char go through the Zeon Academy was a lot of fun. Just getting to see like how freaking badass he is, and the way he sort of built up Garma over all that time was just absolutely brilliant. I didn't expect to see Professor Minovsky. That's something that a lot of the super geeky Gundam fans are really going to like, especially because, of course, he created the Minovsky particles and is effectively responsible for the creation of true mobile suits that we see in the original series in Universal Century and beyond. That was really eye-opening right there. Getting to see more of the other members of the Zombie family was also very satisfying. There was a lot of Dazzle in this episode, and Dazzle is just such an amazingly expressive character. I love that dude. He's great. All the brand new side characters were pretty good as well. Frankly, this was just a really well-paced, super riveting OVA of Gundam the Origin, which, if you're a Gundam fan, especially if you're a fan of the original, it also has some very good high-quality animation and artwork and lots of just big, explosive action scenes, which can manage to be pretty intense at times. So, really, I just cannot recommend this one enough. I really enjoyed it. If you haven't watched the original Mobile Suit Gundam series, maybe give this one a watch, but then watch the original Mobile Suit Gundam. It might actually make you appreciate the character of Char a little bit more. All I know is this is something that all Gundam fans should definitely see at least once. I'm loving Gundam the Origin so far. I can't wait till we get to the next episode. We're this much closer to the 1 year war. We're probably going to see the very first mobile suit battle in the series in the next episode. We'll get to see a lot of cool prototypes. I'm kind of hoping in the back of my mind we might even see a prototype for the original Gundam, although it's probably not going to happen, although I'm alright with that, because so far this has been a Gundamless Gundam anime, and it's still been pretty damned amazing. And this episode right here was good because it focused on Char, who was more of a background character in the first couple of episodes, and by him being at the forefront, it already made this a way more interesting anime adaptation. So, I can't say enough more good things about this OVA. It was just pretty damned perfect in my opinion. Again, I am slightly biased as I'm a hardcore Gundam fan. I own just about every series on DVD. Yes, I will be picking up Double Zeta and Gundam X when it's released this summer. Yes, I will be picking up Gundam Build Fighters at the end of this year, and I'm even going to probably start picking up these OVAs when they're on Blu-ray and DVD because they are just freaking great. Check out all of those awesome Gundam DVDs at Right Stuff. They're doing a great job of releasing them for the fans and making it so that hardcore Gundamites can finally own the entire series. And this one right here is definitely one that I need in my collection. I'm giving this episode a 5 out of 5. It was freaking awesome! Check it out, Gundam fans! You might see something you like. But if any of you did watch the third OVA from Gundam The Origin, please tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. Did you like the episode as much as I did? Did you like getting to learn a little bit more about Char Aznable's true origins, him getting his mask for the first time, and that amazing action sequence? What do you want to see from the final episode of Char's story? And what do you want to see from the rest of the Gundam anime franchise? Please tell me in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this, my friends. I really appreciate it. If you would like to help support the channel, maybe like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out all of our cool anime and manga reviews. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby.